Join our annual Arts and Wellness Festival to connect, create, and celebrate with the Soultry sisters.
In 2023, we explored what it means to cultivate your sanctuary.
Our 3-day festival highlights BIPOC, women, and queer artists and wellness practitioners based in San Diego.
Each year, we collaborate with featured guest artists to build our festival program, which includes creative expression classes, wellness workshops, and performances.
Day 1 of the festival is all about connection. We begin our festival with a social mixer where attendees enjoy music, dancing, and have an opportunity to meet other attendees, guest artists, and us.
Day 2 of the festival is all about creating. Our arts and wellness workshops give folks an opportunity to explore, embrace, and embody what cultivating your sanctuary means to them.
Day 3 of the festival is all about celebration. There is music, dancing, performances, and an open mic for attendees to share. Without a doubt, we always close with a dance party and teach folks the Soultry strut.
We are grateful for all the memories made each year at our Summer Solstice Arts and Wellness Festival, and we can't wait to see you next year.
In the meantime, remember to keep living vibrant and shining bright.
Hey, welcome back, y'all.
Hello.
Yeah, so we are here week 7, so over halfway of our Artist Way book club. So we are really, really excited. We have been doing this since January. We're ending the month. I can't believe February is already over. The month is going by fast, and we'll be continuing until the first week of April. So we still have a long way to go. If you're just tuning in, you can catch the replays on our YouTube channel, our Facebook, and we are currently live on Instagram as well. Oh, you're muted.
So we always like to start our Soultry hangout with checking in. So if you're tuning in live, welcome. Let us know where you're tuning in from and what you are sipping on. Don't mind if I go first.
Okay.
Because I'm drinking a new drink. So I am tuning in from San Diego and I am sipping on a matcha latte, which I learned how to make myself this week. And this is like my 4th one, and it's only Wednesday. So
Nice. So, hey y'all, I'm Tony tuning in from the DC area and sipping on my tried and true herbal tea. So, I have my Tulsi and Tulsi hibiscus tea, and I added some rose hip syrup, which rose hip is really nice if you're feeling sore. And I'm very sore from my pole class. So, yeah, I'm sipping on that. It's really hot right now, so I'm waiting for it to cool down. And of course, I have my agua, H2O, as always.
love it. Speaking of soreness, I am sore too. I taught a contemporary jazz class on Monday, and every time I think that I already, know what soreness feels like. I'm always surprised. I'm always humbled by the tiny muscles that come alive when you're dancing. I'm sure you can attest to that, Tony, because you got new muscles developing from pole dancing.
Yes, definitely new muscles. It's a new mindset, new everything.
I love it. I love it. So as y'all come in, let us know how your week was. Even if you're not a part of our book club, we love to hear from you. So still check in with us. Let us know how you're feeling, how your week has been, and maybe even just generally let us know like what type of soul care have you been doing for the past week.
And so if you're wondering what days, times we're going live, it's same time, same place every week. But you can check out our website, soultrysisters.com/book club to stay up to date on all things book club and the artist way. Of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel where most of you are watching us live. So you can get notifications when we go live, and also you can see all of our other content on there as well. We have so many other things, and we have clips from our previous book clubs. We have the first episode on our playlist, on our book club playlist, so you can catch up on the different things we've read over the years. Um, and just stay tuned. And of course, if you want to know more about the book club and interact, you can go to join our book club's app. So it's a free app. I will put the link in the chat. And we will add all of our upcoming March and April dates. I can't believe we're already like nearing the end of book club. But yeah, you guys can chat on there, post photos, interact, and it's a good way to get reminders of when our book clubs go live as well.
Speaking of March and March events, we are excited to share that we have 3 in-person events happening in the month of March, and all 3 of them are surrounded around celebrating the spring equinox. If you don't know, Tony and I are bookends of the Pisces season. So Tony's the beginning, and I'm towards the end and the beginning of the Aries season. So we really hope that you can join us. March 17th will be a mindful movement workshop. March 22nd will be our Soultry Sisters Silent Disco fundraiser. It's the first time we'll be ever having an event like this with the Silent Disco. This is another community organization based in Oceanside. And then on the 24th, we will be doing another movement workshop in partnership with Community Roots Farm, which is a local farm in our neighborhood, like 5 minutes away from our home. So we hope that you can join us for all 3 events or one of the 3 events. And fun little incentive, someone may be in town.
Yes. So go to our website, soultrysisters.com/events. I put it in the chat so you can click directly to learn more about all the awesome things we have going on. Just this past Sunday, I led our free flow first class of its partnership with Soultry House, with Treehouse in DC. And that was really, really fun. I read some cards from my Adinkra card deck, from the Rest deck by Trisha Hersey, and I shared some quotes from Rest's Resistance by Trisha Hersey that we did a book club last year at the beginning of the year, and then I led a yoga flow. So it was a really, really wonderful, restful experience. So stay tuned for more experiences from Sultry Sisters on the East Coast. And thank you all who joined. It was a very, very lovely time. And it was a kind of a mix between book club meets our soul flow, meets just community gathering. So it was really, really great. And I felt like it was a really fun way to relaunch Soultry in the DC area, the DMV area.
And if you aren't following us on social media, you might want to, because you can catch a few pictures and real soon of what that looked like. If you want to see what Treehouse looked like and the vibe that Soultree set over there, I really want to go to one when we do another event there.
Yes, it's very, very fun. And so, of course, we appreciate all support all the time, but especially during Pisces season. So, definitely check out our Venmo, PayPal, all of that sorts at Soultree Sisters, or go to our website /support and see all the ways that you can contribute to our Soultree community, our Soultree Community Fund. We even have a fund specifically for the festival so we can promote folks being able to pay it forward, so other people who may not be able to pay full price or don't want finances to get in the way of them attending, we have a scholarship fund to allow more folks to come. So we're really, really excited. So if you haven't already, join our interest list. So we had a few folks sign up already, but go to our website, soultrysisters.com/SS Festival, to celebrate the summer solstice with us. It's June 21st to 23rd, to celebrate the summer solstice literally that weekend in community. It's a way for us to promote local BIPOC and queer artists and creatives. And we have a really, really exciting theme this year. So stay tuned. You don't want to miss out. And of course, if you're not able to attend, then just donating or sharing the link or sharing our posts are a great way to support our community as well.
Definitely. Thank you all for coming in and hearing our announcements. We're going to be segueing into our book club discussion. But before that, we want to remind y'all that we are we're centering all of our programming in the new year about creative care. So this whole book series, which is a 12-week series, has been surrounded around us reconnecting to finding our creative connection. And this week we're talking about connection. So just a reminder that we are talking about creative care, what that looks like for us here at Soultry. And we want folks who are joining us to think about and reflect what that looks like in your life. For us, one of the things that look like creative care is having our weekly book club discussions here.
Yes, so let's get into week 7. So we're going to start off with our check-in, of course. So if y'all have been reading with us, then we're going to start with how this past week has gone. So how many days this week did you do your morning pages? Have you allowed yourself to daydream a few creative risks? And are you coddling your artist child with childhood loves?
For me, I was able to write in my artist way journal 5 out of the 7 days. Um, and then the next question is, have I allowed myself to daydream a few creative risks? Hmm. I'm not so I don't know if I was daydreaming about creative risks as much as I was coddling my artist child with childhood loves. I think I was more focusing on the second. And one of those things that I have been doing have been really allowing myself to honor what I want to do in real time. Like getting away from responsibility and obligations and really just tapping into like what I want to do in this moment, being more present. I was a little bit more moody this week, so I felt it was easier to coddle my artist child and just do what I want to do because I felt a little bit rebellious with my schedule. So that's what this week looked like as far as um, tapping into my inner artist child.
Nice. Let's see. We have Kyle checking in with some honey chai tea from Wheaton. Did my morning pages, though I can't remember if I did my artist date, so maybe I didn't, right? Or maybe it was something smaller, right? Because I think a lot of us are unlearning the big artist date and able to do different things small, like at home or outside. So maybe if you reflect, maybe you did do something, but maybe it didn't look like previous weeks. Yeah, so for me, I journaled 7 out of 7 days this week. I had to check because I got a new journal. So I started
Mhm.
with the green journal, finished that, had to go into my regular journal, and then I didn't want to do that. So I got my new lavender journal again, and I bought multiple, so one of every color that she has. So I'll be set for a little bit of time now. But
For the whole
so
year,
I had to. Well, clearly I write a
half
lot,
the
so
year.
not the whole year. Probably be like for the next 2 months. But so I had to check the couple of journals, but I did do 7 days. I was like, okay, I'm proud of myself. But I did notice that this week, a couple of days, I did like 2 pages, or not the full 3, but I was
Mhm.
appreciative that I was still consistent because I felt like other weeks, if I couldn't sit down to do a whole 3 page, and I would just not do it at all. So I like
Yes.
that this week it was like cultivating that consistency, and I feel like that has really helped. Um, yeah, I don't know if I daydreamed about creative risk. I feel like when I daydream, it's more about rest, I guess. But I don't know if I interpret that as a creative risk. But
Mm.
daydreaming came up in my session, my free flow event with Treehouse, because reading Rest is Resistance and her rest deck, a card that I pulled for the class, was about daydreaming and allowing ourselves to daydream. So I did mention that in class. So that kind of overlapped about like creating space to daydream. So I definitely did that. And then coddling my artist child. I mean, again, I think I've been leaning into rest and doing less, which I guess can be interpreted as that. But I don't think I was like intentionally being like, I'm gonna let my artist child
Mhm.
play or do that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Geneva shares, I did 4 out of 7 pages this week and have also started to write my dreams while when writing my dreams when journaling. Pisces season, yes.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, I've definitely been dreaming a lot more vividly, and I have been writing about my dreams in my morning pages. This is the first thing when I wake up, so that has been really helpful too, to capture my dreams and interpret them or whatever. Because usually I would dream, I just wouldn't always remember because I wouldn't write them down right away, so yeah, morning pages definitely has been a space for me to capture my dreams, um, and of course, like daydreaming and dreaming in the night, have different things that can come up for us. So I do appreciate that the practice of morning pages helps kind of build that, I guess, connection. Like this week, we're talking about connection, like building that connection with self so you can take time to kind of think about what these things are coming up for you, what they might mean, what it's bringing up, all those things.
Definitely. And I think for me, morning pages this week was less. I think I was more my writing was more about what I have to do. Like it wasn't as dreamy of a writing session this week. But I do notice that I'm being more honest
Mm.
with myself, which was interesting. So what about artist dates, y'all? Did you go on an artist date this week? Did you use it to take any risks? And what did you do? And how did it feel?
Nice. Yeah, my original plan was to do my Lego sets that I got for my birthday. So I got a couple different Lego sets with different flowers. So I was gonna do them at home as like a really cozy date. And then I remembered that I signed up for an artist talk and panel at the MLK library, which I did
Mm,
I think my very first artist date or one of the very first artist
yeah.
date. I went to that same library. So they had a free event with an artist, like a black artist that I like, and then it was a panel of like other artists, and they really were centering using art and film and community conversations to uplift like abortion rights, and that kind of care. So they kind of centered like care as an intervention and using art as a praxis of care. So
Mhm.
that was really cool, to be around folks like that. And it was a free event. So that was really nice. And it helped me like get out of the house and stuff. So I really enjoyed it. So we watched clips of different films and got to see some clips from some of the different artists' projects that had to deal with the topic. So that was really inspiring. And yeah, so it felt nice. And I felt like I was at the right place at the right time. Because those of you who don't know, I'm trained as a full spectrum doula, but like one of the areas that I really appreciate is actually being an abortion doula and supporting folks through releasing pregnancies. And so, yeah, I felt it was really timely for that kind of conversation.
Hmm. I love how you had a little spontaneity for your artist date this week. You know, you had a
Mhm.
plan and then you also had another plan. So I guess when in doubt, plan it out because you will be covered. For me, my artist date, I went to see Fun Home, a musical in Carlsbad, and it's about a queer lesbian coming of age, coming out story. It's based off of a graphic novel, actually, which I didn't know, and it made me want to
Oh,
look
nice.
more into the graphic novel. But my artist date this week was more spontaneous. I was planning to do something more inside the house, but I ended up, y'all, I took a risk this week. I played hooky from work. I called in sick and I went to see a play. So, yeah, that was my risk. I was risking it, y'all. I was like, you know what? I don't want to go to work today. I don't wanna go to work today. I don't wanna do it. I was like, "I wanna see this play," and so I was literally in, like, dance clothes, like, I was not in, like, what you would wear to the theater. Y'all, I was in a big T-shirt, leggings, socks on top of my leggings, my Birkenstocks, a sweater, and I just went in. I was like, "I wanna go see this show." It was interesting because it felt liberating to just go to the theater because it's a place that feels like home now that I feel like I can go looking like how I looked and don't have to like put on a certain type of clothing or a certain type of thing to feel like I can go. Like, because typically my old self would be like, you got to go home, take a shower, then you can go to the show. I was like, no, I want to go. I want to see this show. And there was an artist talk back at the end, and one of my friends is in the play. And so I was able to connect with a friend that I haven't been able to see in a while. So my artist date looked like really being spontaneous and also being a little bit rebellious and saying, like, no, I want to do this. And I know I have responsibilities, but my risk is, very low in my eyes. So I did what I had to do. And it felt good because I'm normally a person that is very a rule follower. I don't want to break rules. I don't like breaking schedules. If I, have to do something, I want to do it. But I was like honoring how I really was feeling. And I just did not feel like doing the other thing. So it felt weird, but good. I have no regrets. And that's why I'm saying it here. So it's just recorded. There's a receipt. But who's gonna come for me? Like, I don't know. I don't even care.
That's funny. But yeah, like doing what feels good, definitely. And then we have Geneva sharing, I went to the park to hula hoop, journal, meditate, and read on the full moon. Love that. It was a great day. Yes, I love that so much. And yesterday I was a part of, not I was a part, I was a participant in a webinar from the Kimbrative, who are based in Brooklyn. They're Black women who do different like events, workshops centered around like Black women's holistic wellness. And this specific workshop was on like sexual wellness. And we were talking about pleasure and stuff, but the icebreaker was about like what was the first memory of feeling good.
Mm.
And one memory that I shared was like, oh, I always love playing on the swings. And when I go to the park, like the park I go to in my new place that I live, there's a swing set, but I always see like kids and stuff there. And so I'm always like, oh, I probably shouldn't go because there's like children here. Being an adult, you're like, okay, am I encroaching on this like child safe place? But everyone in the chat was like, oh no, just go. And they love going to the park and doing stuff. So it reminded me like, oh yeah, like there's different things that I like to do that, as an adult, you kind of stop yourself because you're just like, oh, I guess we're not supposed to do that anymore. So
Mm.
that was a really beautiful reminder yesterday that a lot of these things that we enjoy, of course, are linked back to childhood, but are we making time to do those things? And I think the artist way has been a great way in my journey to tap back into those things and kind of unapologetically do those things that I feel like society kind of conditions us that like we shouldn't do them anymore or shouldn't do them
Mm.
publicly anymore and all of these nonsense things. But yeah, I definitely appreciate this book for kind of reminding us that we have the freedom to do all of this stuff that we enjoy so much.
Yes, and that a lot of the perspective is choice, right? So changing the perspective and like going on that swing. Don't get stuck though, because then that's another story. If it's the one where you put your legs through,
Oh no, not
don't
the one
do
with the
it.
legs. This
Okay.
booty, hips, thighs,
Do
girl.
not do that
I'm
one.
a
I was kidding.
woman. I'm a woman now.
I'm a woman.
The womanly body can't fit in that child. The regular one that's
Okay,
just like
okay,
the
the
belt.
sling.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
yeah.
Did y'all experience any synchronicity this week? What was it? Um, I did, y'all, and it was an interesting like web of synchronicity for me. Um, so in the chapter, which was talking about recovering a sense of connection, we had one of the exercises that talked about archaeology, and then I I watched Tony mention like an artist to me, and they trained under Catherine Dunham. And then I watched the documentary, the jazz dance documentary, Uprooted, and they talked about Catherine Dunham again. And I was like, Catherine Dunham, like someone's like, Catherine Dunham, look her up, Catherine. So it was interesting how and then she was a dance archaeologist. So I feel like
Mm.
right now I am applying for grad school and thinking about and just thinking more about like dance as a social practice, dance as a cultural practice, a communal practice. And so I think the synchronicity is pointing me in the direction of learning more about Catherine Dunham outside of her
Mhm.
dance and choreography work, and more into her work as an archaeologist. So we'll see where that gets me. But I'm like just saying
Cool.
out loud, I'm like, I just feel like And then Tony's birthday, her one of her majors was or minors was medical anthropology. So it's like anthropology, archaeology, then anthropology, how they kind of can be similar. But yeah, that's coming up a lot for me. And I'm like, what do you want me to? And then the theme of excavating, I guess this whole book is about excavating. So I don't know, something about
Mhm.
excavating and Sankofa looking back and moving forward. Something's brewing, y'all. I don't know what it is, but it's brewing.
Nice. Yeah. So definitely like leaning into those. I can't really remember now off the top of my head any specific synchronicities outside of like numerology and seeing my angel numbers
Mm.
and stuff like that. Yeah, I can't really think of anything this week. And then we have Kyle sharing. I did have the feeling of the same conversation coming up in different groups and being able to carry insights from one to another, which always feels like synchronicity, right? Yeah. So it's always
Mm.
nice to think of it in different ways. And then last check-in question is were there any other issues this week that you consider significant for your recovery?
Again, the word issues. I was like, I don't think I had any issues. But I would like later on we'll be talking about perfectionism, and I think um confronting perfectionism and working through perfectionism this week was significant for my recovery. So especially like thinking about like the artist date wasn't planned, I leaned into spontaneity, um and certain things like that. But I want to wait later. I want to wait to answer this more fully later in our conversation. But I will say that um, I'm noticing the walls of my perfectionism. Not they're not down, but like just imagine like if a wall is like now water damaged, it's a little bit wavy. Like it's not strong, but it's there. But I see somehow it's getting warped. If
Or
that
like a
makes sense.
gate when like there's like what do you call it? Little slots in the gate where like some stuff can get through. You know how like the rabbits and stuff still be getting
Yes.
through, or the lizards. It's
Yeah.
like you
So
still
I've
can get so past.
mhm.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that counts for this question.
Okay.
Um, and at the beginning of my journey, my sleep routine was a major issue in my recovery. And y'all, I am proud to say that I am way more consistent with doing my little routine of all of my herbal goodies, my tart cherry juice that I've been drinking in this wine glass that my friend gifted to me. So it's very luxurious. I'm luxuriating at night. I've now been doing it earlier and earlier so I can get to bed earlier. So that's been helping me. So I wake up feeling rested to do my morning pages. So I think that's why I've been more consistent because it's like my sleep routine has been better and I haven't really been
Mm.
on social media as much at night. Um, I've been watching some stuff more recently, like on the TV or YouTube, but I feel like slowly each week with the different challenges has helped me cultivate a better routine that I am feeling more rested holistically, which is nice. Um, so yeah, I think that's been helping me show up in the ways that I have.
Definitely. Sleep will add to that. And Kyle shares, will say I'm noticing the drain of social media and my phone on my creativity and clarity of mind, SMH. Yes, I'm noticing that too, friend. I'm noticing it. It's like I'm getting more agitated and I easier from it. I'm like, this thing is bothering me. I can name it
Mhm,
and I know what it is versus like a random mood shift. I'm like, oh no, it's because of media. Considering another no media week. Hmm.
mhm,
So one thing that I've noticed, y'all, and I don't let me know if y'all feeling this way. So during my artist dates, or even when I'm like doing things like I've watched a lot of movies this past week, which like it's like, but it's less social media. But when I was watching my movies, I didn't have this in my hand,
mhm,
and that's the shift I'm noticing that I'm actually focusing on one thing at a time because I'm now
mhm,
I don't know what it is, but normally if I sit down to watch a movie, my phone's near me, but like during these times, my phone has not been near me. So there's been a shift definitely in my behavior and my attachment to the phone, but I do still like use it. It's just less has a less of an unconscious hold.
Definitely. Yeah. I feel like I've had that shift too. Of like, yeah, being more focused on whatever thing I'm doing, which has been helpful. Yeah, whether I'm eating or doing the thing, definitely. And that's been helpful. Um, and what else came up when Kyle said that? Yeah, like the draining aspect. And so one thing I like a practice that I have, I don't think all of y'all would like to do this, but I do not go on social media until I do my morning pages. So I think that's also why this last 2 weeks I've been more consistent
Yeah.
because I'm literally like, no, you need to do your pages. Like the discipline of like, you didn't do this thing you want to do for yourself. So why are you just gonna scroll, right? Because there's not that many reasons to be on there. Like even if I have to post for Soultry, I don't need to
Mhm.
just be on there. But if I want to be on social media, I need to do my morning pages. So that has been helpful for me personally to incentivize like, okay, you want to do your morning pages in the environment you want, but also so if you want to check social media, then you know you already did this thing for yourself.
Mhm. I also noticed too, I'm starting to leave my phone in like a different room and I'll just put the ring up. Because the reason why I always have the phone on me
Mhm.
is because it's like on vibrate,
Do not
but now
disturb.
or accidentally do not disturb. So now I'm like, no, I'm gonna put the ring on just like when you have a house phone. If someone's gonna call you or text you, you'll hear the ding. So that's helped me, like switching that behavior of like, this is why you put the ding on or the ring on so that you can leave it and not have it attached to you.
Definitely.
And then Geneva shares, I did experience synchronicity this week. I had a conversation with my friend about what happened to her, and then the same night I dreamt of the same thing. Mhm. Mhm. And Kyle shares, agreed, being more intentional about not using the phone at dinner and during conversations too. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's little things like that.
And then Pauline is sharing the social media thing is so hard for me since it's a huge part of my job, managing 4 plus accounts. So having to stay on top of engagement and trends is exhausting. Yes, I feel that, Pauline, because there was a time when, yeah, I was managing like four or so accounts as well. And it's a lot. And I think for me, that was always kind of a reason or an excuse why I couldn't do a social media break. But I'm also realizing now with like, these platforms where you can schedule posts, these platforms that allow you to do certain other things as a manager of those types of sorts can help sometimes alleviate the need to just be on there. Like I know it's different about like engagement and stuff, but sometimes utilizing those things helps like my brain be like, okay, I don't need to just be on all the time. And also, I utilize muting certain accounts or unfollowing certain accounts that just is sharing content that's just either just a lot or draining or not what I want. So I think that's been something I've
Mhm.
realized since the deprivation week is like really being intentional of the content I'm taking in. So if I am scrolling and I'm starting to see things that are making me feel like different emotions, that's not the restful space I want to be in, then taking a break or realizing that I just don't need to engage in a certain thing. So, like, utilizing social media as a helpful tool for my creativity, but not allowing all the other
Mhm.
matote madness to encroach on that and make me not like the space anymore. So, I think with my spurts that I've been on it so far, I've been able to maintain that kind of boundary.
Mhm. Definitely. Um, so yeah, y'all, let us know if there's anything else that came up for y'all for the um this week in recovering a sense of connection. We're going to start to segue into talking about week 7 tasks and task reflections. And so let me turn. So if you have the book, you can turn to the end of the chapter. If you have your journal, you can bring that out. If not, just go ahead and take a listen. So there were like 10 tasks this week. And so let us know in the chat if there are any tasks that um, you were able to get through, any tasks that you felt you want to come back to. Let us know. For me this week, um, the tasks, a lot of it had to do with the collage. The collage came back again, and I had that from
Mhm.
last week. Like I want to get into my collage, so it's been hard to get those ones done. But that's why I like that she has multiple options. But the first one, she says, Make this phrase a mantra. Treating myself like a precious object will make me strong. And then she says, watercolor or crayon or calligraph this phrase. Post it where you will see it. We tend to think being hard on ourselves makes us strong, but it is cherishing ourselves that gives us strength. Mhm. I feel this one, and I didn't necessarily write this down anywhere, but I did read the chapter and look through the tasks before Sunday when I decided to honor myself and treat myself like a precious object and say, I'm taking the day off and I'm going to go see this play. So I feel like I embodied the the sense of like tending to myself and being kind to myself and not being hard on myself of like you should do this and doing exactly what I wanted actually gave me more um energy and like it just it just replenished me in a way that didn't feel depleting. Like I felt like I felt no repercussions for having made that decision. So I think that has to do with this mantra of just really like
Mhm.
I'm treating myself like what I need is more important than anyone else's needs of me at this
Mhm.
time.
Yeah. No, I feel that. Yeah, I didn't write this down anywhere externally either, but I did underline it and heart it because I thought it was really
Mhm.
special. And I do feel like that's been helping me rest more, like go to bed sooner, and just in general in my day-to-day routine, like I've realized I have more space to rest and tend to myself. So like making sure I'm like eating at good times and drinking water and
Mhm.
going on my walks and stuff. So I definitely feel like the mantra is helpful.
Yes. And then number 2 talks about, give yourself time out to listen to one side of an album just for joy, or learn to take just mini artist dates to break stress and allow insight. Y'all, that's how I learned how to make a matcha latte, which I have finished. So Pauline recommended this company Paru to order really nice
Mhm.
green tea from, or matcha green tea from. And I have had 4 and it's Wednesday. So this has been my immediate honest date because I got the wooden whisk and I have to boil the
Mhm.
water, then I have to measure and sift. So it is different than me using the Keurig for my coffee once a day. And so that has been my mini artist date. And I have felt when I get to do this and make space for myself in the morning, that means I've given myself enough time to get ready. Like, so that's why I'm
Mhm.
having it in the afternoon because this morning was not happening. But I had it for this, I had it for this live. So many artist dates like making yourself a drink. Let us know in the chat if you're finding small, luxurious moments like from the week of abundance to pour into yourself.
Nice. So yes, Pauline says 100% AJ, same feeling. Yeah, so yeah, that's how I felt with like using my wine glass for my cherry tart juice that I got at the farmer's market. So I got 2 jars this week. Um, and that has been really sweet. And yeah, so I think my like the little different restful practices I've been
Mhm.
doing kind of counts as that.
Any other tasks y'all stuck out to you? There was one about creating a wonderful smell in your house. Right now, I have my incense going.
Yeah, I always do incense. I do like incense in the morning. Usually, if I remember, I'll do it before I do my morning pages, but just usually when I'm starting my day. And then when I'm on live, I usually have incense or a candle. So today I have a candle on because, yeah, aromatherapy is always very important to me. But
Mhm.
Kyle shares, I read the task this week. I do want to get to them, though, to do them. Lots of them seem more involved. Yes. So I also didn't get
Yeah.
to do all of them, but I essentially like read them and kind of understood like, oh,
Mhm.
this makes sense for what we're
You,
talking
they
about.
a lot of them have a grounding energy. Most of these tasks, like wearing your favorite article of clothing. This y'all, I couldn't figure out which blazer to wear for y'all today. Tony knows I have a collection of blazers, and so I wanted to show off one of my favorite items to wear, which is a jacket. I love outerwear. Okay, I love layering on top. So I just wanted to share that with y'all.
Nice. Yeah, so for number 5, I kinda do that all the time, I just like to wear my
Right.
favorite stuff, but I always wear, like, big earrings because I like them, and then this week I did wear my, like, comfy pants, they're, like,
Oh, yeah.
warm, fuzzy, like a blanket material. I've worn these a couple of days this week, so, yeah, I wasn't necessarily, like, doing that because of this task, but reflecting back, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, it does make me feel nice, when I do that."
Mhm. And the 2 other tasks that stuck out to me that I'm curious and I wanna ask the group here. So if you didn't do the task, definitely you're welcome to answer in the chat. Number 8 is list your 5 favorite films. And do you see any common denominators among them? Are they romances, adventures, period pieces, political dramas, family epics, thrillers? Do you see traces of your cinematic themes in your collage, like if you were because that was another task. But I just yeah, let us know in the chat what are some of your favorite films. So Kyle, you mentioned not getting some of your tasks done, so maybe share some of your favorite films. I know it was hard for me to say what my favorite films are. I can mostly name genres. So I love rom-coms. I love a good period piece, and I'm here for all the drama, especially a drama with a thriller. That Mia Culpa that came out, the new Tyler Perry movie, y'all. It's all the drama, all the thriller. Kelly Rowland's starring in it, and I will say 10 out of 10. I recommend. I'm mad it's not a series. I'm mad it's just a movie. So those are my favorite
That's
types of movies.
funny. That's funny. Yeah, I love a good rom-com, comedy, and so some of my faves are, like, just classics that I've watched over and over since I was younger,
Mhm.
and since I turned 30 last week, I put 13 going on 30, Mean Girls, the original,
Mm.
White Chicks, Intergalactic, so Kid
Oh
Cudi's,
yes.
movie, I love that one so much because it's, like, romantic, it's animated, it's black love, it's really cute,
Mhm.
um, and then there's just a bunch of different other kind of like comedies that I wrote. So yeah, that's very telling of my personality, and I still love all of those movies.
Yeah. I have a question for the group too, and I don't know if this is something that maybe you noticed, but when I thought about my favorite films, I automatically went to like what are the DVDs I bought? Because when I bought a DVD, that meant I really liked the movie, but now with streaming, it's like for me all the newer movies, sometimes it's hard for me like that's my favorite. I'll forget the titles and stuff because of the way it's brought to us in these streaming platforms. It doesn't feel as precious as when I used to buy them. So I kind of was like, oh, that's an interesting thing. I thought that the ones that I remember are the ones from when I was buying the DVDs.
Oh no, for sure. That's why some of these are my favorite because I just would watch them over and over and over again. So I can like recite some of these movies like as probably a monologue because yeah, it was just what we had. So we would cherish it and watch it a lot more than yeah, now there's just so many options, so many streaming platforms. There's so many different things you can have access to now. So I do feel like it's usually harder. And I realize too, I watch a lot more television series than movies as I got older. So
Mhm,
I think that's also why when I think about favorite movies, I usually think of what I watched younger because now it's more so TV shows that I
mhm,
strongly love. But this question was specifically about film. So that's why I
mhm.
limited myself. Yeah.
Yes. Then Pauline shares, my mini artist day is me stepping outside and letting the sun hit my skin, closing my eyes and focusing on the feeling. Oh, for just a few minutes. Yes, that's a glorious
Mhm.
one. Some feels so good. And then Kyle shares, I will say, kind of my artist date, I guess. I decided to get a 5K in during the workday because I wanted to go to the park in my neighborhood. That feels somewhat like a sacred place. Answer to number 3.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
outdoors being a sacred place.
Yeah. And then Pauline sharing, I struggle with these types of lists because I love so many, but top ones that come to mind Inception. Yes, that was a good
Mm,
movie. Signs. And then all the Harry Potter films. Of course, right? There's like so many great films out there. So those are a great lists. Then Geneva shares The Devil Wears Prada. Love that one too.
yes.
Brown Sugar. Yes. Prime. Eat, Pray, Love. I did love that one. And I read the book.
Mhm.
Step Up 2, okay.
Yes.
To All the Boys I Loved
Yes,
Before. I did think that one was really cute,
I love that
and I
one.
kept up with the one afterwards.
Mhm.
And then Mean Girls, and it's hard to think of favorites, right? There's just so many. So I
So many.
appreciate y'all sharing all of yours because then it just gives me inspo of like, ooh, there's so many others that I want to watch. And then we have Kyle sharing, honestly, love a hero movie, even a Western, yes, but
Ooh.
especially Black ones. So movies like Django, Get Out, Black Dynamite, Black Panther. Oh, yes, I should add Black Panther to my list.
Yes, Black
The
Panther.
Harder They Fall, but movies aren't my main media either, right? But you got a good solid list here
Yes.
with it not
What was the
being your
one,
main media.
not Get Out, but the other one, with the one with the alien in the air?
Us. Oh, no, Nope.
No, no.
Us
Nope.
is the one underground, and then Nope is
Yes.
the aliens.
Yes, yes. That's the kind of drama thriller I like, definitely.
Oh, yeah, that's the only kind of thriller I watch. So Pauline says, "Yes, Get Out, any Jordan Peele directed film, honestly." Yes, I love Jordan Peele. I don't know if I love the genre, but I love Jordan Peele, so I will watch the genre. So thank y'all
So we
for
got a lot
sharing,
of
and then,
movie
yeah,
folks in here.
the next question, number 9, was fave topics to read about, which is my fave because I am a book nerd. So it's very similar to kind of the stuff I watch, but books especially, I love romance, so things about like new love or different kinds of love, coming of age. I love stories about like magic and healing powers, especially as like an herbalist. Um,
Mhm.
Books about like family, generational healing. So I really love like storytelling of families and their lineage and stories across generations and like different people from the families being able to share their story. And that inspired me this past year to like gift my parents journals where they can share their stories with us. And A little bit of sci-fi. I'm not too deep into it, but there's just specific ones that I've enjoyed. And then, of course, books about like finding self or healing or those kind of themes, which makes sense if you know me. But yeah, it was
Mhm.
nice to reflect on like, oh yeah, these are the things I like to read.
Yes. For me, I love to read like books on wellness. I love to read books about um I would say they're more like sciencey books, um, why the brain is like why we think a certain way, why we do certain things. So I like a lot of books like about sociology, like study of people, making sense of interactions and relationships. I think I like a lot of relationship books, whether that is me in being introspective about my relationship or reading about someone else's relationship. I want to that's I think I really like books that are about like uh I would say relationships, people interpersonal relationships.
Hmm.
Hmm. And if it's not that, it's about looking deep inside myself, like self-help books. I haven't really got much into the fictional because I feel like a lot of my work as a creative is like in that fictional space. So I tend to go the other way, but I'm teetering, y'all. I'm teetering towards
I be recommending her books that would go with her art all the time, and she don't be reading them. I recommend Afrofuturism books.
Children of Blood and Blood and Bone. Yes, I love reading about Afrofuturism, like from a documentary, like biographically point of view. But I haven't really tapped into full stories. I'll read like excerpts of the stories.
One day, y'all, one day. But Kyle shares, big fan of books about spirituality. Yes, that is a big one that I read, and also philosophy. And then Pauline shares, I'm all about self help, personal development, get out of my own way type of books. Yes,
Hmm.
I love those too. But ones that I really get wrapped up in, and I can, like how people watch a movie, is like the ones I shared earlier. The
Hmm.
self help ones, I'm like, I do those because, they're interesting and informative, but I tend to not get wrapped up in them. So sometimes instead of watching TV, then it's my books.
Hmm.
But thank you all for sharing your week 7 check-in and your tasks. So now we can get into some of our
Yes.
key takeaways. Ooh, Geneva has her favorite books. I love romance books, lots of smut. Okay, I'm here for
Mm-hmm.
that. Magical witchy books, yes.
Yes.
Spiritually focused books, thrillers. I haven't gotten into thriller books. I have a mystery book that's Filipino writer
Mm-hmm.
and about Filipino
Oh,
culture, but I haven't really gotten into it. And then self development.
yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I always love hearing all of
Yeah.
y'all's recommendations.
I forgot to add that really love poetry books, and I also love books that have pictures of different art. So like picture books, like they're like adult picture books of like artists. Like I just got a Basquiat one, and I have other like those table books. So I'm a very like visual person too. So if y'all like the table books and poetry books, I like that because you can just pick it up and you get lost in a few pages.
Yeah. So week 7 was all about recovering a sense of connection, which we've kind of alluded
Mhm.
to with our check in and all the different tasks that we did over the course of this past week. So this chapter opens up with the section of listening.
Yes, with listening. I really like this. And then she says to open it up. We turn this week to the practice of right attitudes for creativity. The emphasis is on your receptive as well as active skills. The essays, exercises, and tasks aim at excavating areas of genuine creative interest as you connect with your personal dreams.
Hmm.
And the first quote to share is art is not about thinking something up. It's about the opposite, getting something down. And I love this because this
Hmm.
makes me think of like my creative practice. I always say like, oh, I have downloads. It's kind of like those synchronicity things where certain names, certain images will keep coming up, and eventually, once I create a work, I'm like, oh, that was all kind of collage. So I think that's why she's bringing up collaging a lot because a lot of people might find the process of creating things come from many different places and then they kind of make a full picture. So I thought this was an important quote to share because when we're thinking about recovering our creativity and using, connecting to us to source, I like how the images of it downloading versus us digging it up from earth. It's actually coming from above.
And I think that really goes with her over all of these weeks, emphasizing, our relationship with Creator, with the divine, with God, right? It's like through these morning pages, through our artist days, through tapping into these creative practices that we enjoy so much that we're able to have those downloads, right? And which goes into the next quote I want to share is that we can learn not only to listen, but also to hear with increasing accuracy that inspired, intuitive voice that says, do this, try this, say this. So, right, like when we're creating, that voice is creator creating with us. So I think again, this book, when you read the different chapters, it helps be like the aha of like, oh, okay, this is what's happening, right? Because again, many of us as creatives, there's already these practices that we do. We have, these ways to connect to spirit, connect to source. But I think each chapter kind of just reaffirms us in our creative practices that, like, yeah, we're not making this up. It's creator
Mhm.
talking to us, and we're listening when we're creating the different um, creations that we create.
Mhm. And I like how she also mentions, like, the practice of listening, not just like, oh, part of, recovering a sense of connection, you're gonna feel like you're hit upside the head with the inspiration. It's gonna be this gentle, like, sound wave, which brings us to the next quote we wanted to share, which is, "With practice, we learn how to hear the desired frequency on request. We
Hmm.
tune in to the frequency we want." So when you look at when you have the frequency you want, so that was really important to me too because if you're like, how much are we curating to receive um, the message, like a good message, or are we curating to hear the bad message? Because I feel like it all comes through. It's how are we filtering it? That's what with
Hmm.
practice, which voice we hear is that censor, is that creator. So I think with practice we are able to hear the desired frequency on request, not just what's going to come up.
Mhm. Exactly. And then we have Kyle here sharing another synchronicity moment. I was writing and had the phrase get something down, and Word wanted to correct it to take something down. I ignored it and read the chapter right after, right? Exactly. So it be happening in all types of different ways
Yes.
in our lives. So thank y'all for keep sharing the different synchronicities that came up. But again, as we're in week 7, I think a lot of the book really with listening is, taking that time to slow down, to be with self, to be with spirit, with source, with creator. And the last quote I want to share about this section is listening is a form of accepting. So it's one of the quotes like on the side. So Stella Terrell Mann shared that. And I think that's so true. It's like the other week when Julia Cameron, recommended that at night we, ask questions to creator, to source, and then through our dreams, we're listening, and then through morning pages, we're able to also listen through our writing. So
Mhm.
again, I think all of this practices that she's helping us cultivate is part of that accepting, and not accepting in defeat, because I think sometimes in mainstream and society, if you
Mm.
just accept the thing, it's like, oh, you just take it as is, or somehow it makes it seem like that word, the connotation of it is negative. But
Th-
I think for this book, it's really about listening as a form of accepting, as like being present. And
mhm.
that is helping you to create and to cultivate these things that you want.
This just came up to me when Tony was talking, y'all. Is that, how some of us may say, like, how some of us are saying that we're starting to dream more, we're starting to daydream more. I think that's, relating to our ability to listen because the morning pages and the artist date. And I feel like that's kind of a direct correlation to why in previous times I would say, like, I don't dream anymore. I haven't had a dream in a long time. But I feel like this active listening, she's talking about daydreaming. She's not talking about just when you're sleeping. So I feel like this recovering a sense of connection is like clearing the Wi-Fi connection. Like, how many bars do you have in connected
Mhm.
to source? That just came through for me. I'm like, oh, okay. So it's more so not necessarily like, do you listen or not? Like, but how well are we receiving the message through like clearing a way to find that connection and having these listening practices. I'm like, wow, I never thought of like these things, right? Morning pages and artist dates as listening practices. I always thought of them as like these are ways to like prime your creativity. She's like, nah, nah, nah. This is listening because you're receiving a message. You're not like making anything. You're waiting to receive the message and then you act out the message. I was like, this she tying some stuff together here. Y'all see
And I feel like with this quote, it reminds me of like when I do my oracle readings, it's really about listening. And it's a form of accepting because the cards will
that?
come out, spirits will talk, and a lot of times there is hesitancy or resistance because you're like, oh, how could spirit say this to me? Or, how do they know? Like, this can't be right. But it's about accepting, right? That spirit, you are connected to spirit and creator, and they are giving you messages if you just listen. And so that's
Mhm.
what came up to me with this quote as well. It's like, oh, yeah, in my spiritual practices, I definitely is part of like listening is a big part of my spiritual practice.
Yes. I remember this one time Tony and I were trying to figure out if we wanted to still have this event due to like I think weather or something. And I was like, no, no, and we went on one deck and I was like, you know what? I was being stubborn. I was like, no, 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 no. Let's do this other deck. And the other deck was like the other deck said. I was
The same message, a
it
different
was the same.
word or
And
a
I was
different
like, I'm
color
gonna choose a
card, but
different
it's the
deck.
same message.
So like again, y'all, the practice of like the desired frequency on request. Like we're requesting an answer, like, no, we want this answer. And they're like, this is your answer. And I was like, no, we want this answer. And they're like, this is your answer. So that
Mhm.
reminds me of like when Tony and I use, our spiritual practices to guide us. If you're listening, they will tell you clearly, like the creator will tell you, again and again, the same answer in different forms.
We have Soultry Mama sharing, be silent to receive what you're listening to or hearing. And I think that is
Mm,
also why, through these practices of creative solitude, Julia Cameron is emphasizing that when you're silent, when you have that space, when you have just time, that stillness, that, again, these downloads can come up, the listening can happen, all of this. So, again, every week it's building upon each other. And then Kyle shares creativity is a process of surrender in a lot of ways. Definitely. I thought about the word inspiration coming from the idea of something being breathed into you and it's something you have to allow. Yes. I've heard a lot of quotes
mhm,
about that, like inspiration being inspired, which is, yeah, definitely the breath, which is connected to life, our life force, our
mhm.
creative force. So yes, again, it all ties in together because we're all on this wavelength of the artist way, and I appreciate hearing all of y'all resonate and have different downloads throughout each week.
Now, this next section, y'all, perfectionism. Now, if you haven't heard of perfectionism or not, don't have a definition, she gives us one. Perfectionism is a refusal to let yourself move ahead. It's a loop, an obsessive, debilitating closed system that causes you to get stuck in the details. I was like, I feel that. I like this definition because it talks about it being in a loop and a refusal to let ourselves move ahead. I think
Mhm.
other definitions of perfectionism, like wanting to get it right, they've all made sense. But this one for me is resonating in a different way because it talks about being in a closed system, as almost as if, that we're not allowing, help. We're not allowing the message to come through. We're not allowing support. We're not allowing something to be a part of our creative space.
Mhm. And then she shares how to the perfectionist, there's always room for improvement. The perfectionist calls this humility. In reality, it is egotism, right? So again, I think a lot of us, if we have perfectionist tendencies, we think of it as like, oh, I'm just trying to do my best. I just want my best work out there. I just, want to make sure that I'm like adding the things that I need to make sure it's like the best, the good, the great thing, no errors. And she's like, that's where you're going wrong. She's like, you're
Hmm.
not allowing the natural flow of like doing a thing and realizing through after sharing the thing that, okay, there's a different iteration. She's saying like there's definitely the iterative process of
That's right.
creativity, but it's not about getting it right. It's not about fixing it. And so that hyperfixation that society has, especially Western capitalist society, is very like, if you're going to put something out there, even with social media now, there's this pressure of like, you want to put something out there, it needs to have like a Canva flyer. You need to have like your brand colors. You need to have your reels with like no mess ups. Like you have to look camera ready.
Hmm.
And she's like, no, that's being a perfectionist, and that's a hurdle and a challenge and barrier to being in your creative flow. And perfectionism came up, which I guess is synchronicity. I guess my week was like how I was preparing for my free flow class. Because again, like leading my first in person session in a long time and having a different kind of flow than the usual stuff we've been doing with our community, I did have this, I guess, pressure of like, okay, like how is this going to come out? How are people going to perceive this? And then I pulled a card from Trisha Hersey's rest deck, was like, let go of the idea of perfectionism, like that's from capitalism, and like just be. Like we don't need to be perfect. You just need to be and allow yourself um to not be perfect. And so that really helped me prepare for the session because then I was like, okay, I'm just going to choose, what resonates with me, which I really love doing oracle readings, and then pick the quotes that stood out to me when we did the book club in the past. And I really enjoyed the session and people seem to get a lot out of it. So definitely releasing perfectionism helped me show up as my full self as a healing artist and to, give my best to my community. And yeah, I didn't have to be perfect, but it resonated, right? So that goes further than being this perfect thing.
Hmm. Definitely. I really like the question too in the book, in the perfectionism. No, I think that's the risk section.
Yeah, we're
But
about to get there.
yeah, we'll get there. So let's move on
Well,
to
one last quote
okay.
from the perfection thing was the very last sentence.
Yes.
Wait, let me see here.
Expect the universe. No, that's not
Yeah,
it.
wait, where is it? Mm. Oh, okay. That a normal part of creativity is letting go.
Mhm.
And again, I think with being a perfectionist is like letting our creative things just be in the ether of the universe too. Like we can let go of like having to have a certain outcome, which again we'll kind of get to in the risk section, but I appreciated her mentioning that part too of like when we let go of perfectionists, that's how we can lean into spontaneity and all those things kind of came up in this section. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is helping unlearn these things that stop us from connecting to creator when we're trying to make, our different types of art or creations that we do.
Mhm. Exactly. I mean, I feel like this live that we're doing with y'all right now is, like for me, a level of like letting go of perfectionism. This is live. We put on all these banners and things are happening, but the whole intent is for us to connect with y'all. So there's always like elements in my life where I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely let it go here. But it's almost like they were talking about the blocked artist, how sometimes there's unseen elements that people don't see that is that risk or maybe that's in the risk. Maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But she was talking about how um to like a person's eye, we may like some people may seem like they're not working out of perfectionism, but really it's like they are because there's different compartments, right? There's in some places we can show up imperfect, but other places we hold ourselves back. So it's almost like not necessarily a black and white, like either a perfectionist or not. It's she's asking us to look at the places in our lives that we are holding ourselves back versus a black and white yes or no. So I appreciated that element too. Because I'm like, oh yeah, in other places of my life, creatively, um, I I'm like, whatever, I'm letting it go. I'm learning as I go. And other places I keep it like in a box, like this creative little box. Yeah, but we'll get to that when we talk about risk.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of came up previous week when she was talking about like the person who's wanting to learn like the drums or an instrument for the first
Hmm.
time and how they were holding themselves back because they wanted to sound perfect because they were worried that someone would think that they sounded terrible, but really it was they were worried of themselves. And so once they let go of that perfectionist, then they tried different types of learning
Yeah.
different types of music and then they enjoyed it, right? So it's like these different things can show up for us in different ways. And usually
Hmm.
perfectionism isn't always like, oh, I want to be perfect. We don't always say that to ourselves. We're like, oh, we want to master a thing, right? Or, oh, we want
Hmm.
to be able to show people this finished product, right? So it can look different, or we don't
Hmm.
want to look like we're bouncing from one idea to a different venture. We want to really just like be in this craft. So I think
Hmm.
also what she's sharing is that it pops up in different ways for all of us. It's not always so rigid, like you're saying, but through the different examples she shared over the last 7 weeks, she
Hmm.
has already shared with us different examples
Yeah.
how perfectionism gets in the way of us being our full
Hmm.
creative selves.
And then Kyle shares the idea that there are no mistakes that came from the Miles Davis quote was shifting for me. Hmm.
Mhm.
There really are. That came up for me too. And I actually mentioned that quote when I was teaching my contemporary jazz class. And I was telling folks, like, don't be afraid to do something different than what I've offered you
Mhm.
because this is class. Like, I want to see you
Mhm.
try different things. I want to see you get out of your head. So it's interesting, like, how as a teacher, I was like, you know, coaching people to get out of perfectionism, but really, like, it's in the mistakes that sometimes something wonderful can happen.
Mhm. Which goes into our risk section. So what you were getting into is this part, yeah.
Yes, if I didn't have to do it perfectly, I would try. Y'all, I enjoyed this exercise. Did you? What did you write down? If I didn't have to do it perfectly, I would try. For me, the first thing that came up, y'all, if I didn't have to do it perfectly, I would. And for me, I would sing karaoke in public more. I can do it at home. I can sing on a stage in like, for professionally, but something about just, someone just asked me to randomly do it. Mm-mm. But if I didn't, it's because of the performance element. But if I didn't have to do it perfectly, I would try. That was one of them. But I love some of the things that she had in here. She had stand-up comedy, modern dancing, archery, learning German, figure drawing, being a platinum blonde, puppeteering, a spontaneous tropical vacation. Um, what is it? Wearing red lipstick, taking a watercolor class. Yeah, I like some of these.
Yeah, I really like this exercise as well. And so, yeah, so many things came up. One of the things I wrote was learning Tagalog because I think growing up being ridiculed if I didn't
Mhm.
pronounce things right kind of made me shy away from learning the language that is very different from English because I learned Spanish and I'm still pretty intermediate at Spanish, but it's, a romantic language, so it has some similarities to English. But yeah, learning a totally different language. And then learning ASL. I've been wanting to learn American Sign Language for a while now, and I keep seeing videos. So that's something that's like, oh yeah, if I didn't have to do it perfect, I would do that. Um, Create a zine.
Mhm.
I put write a book on healing. Read my poetry out loud, which if people watching this who go to open mic nights know me, know that I never share at open mic, so I'm sharing this here. Um, like conversions in yoga, creating
Yeah.
more visual art, stuff like
Well,
that. Because I have
I wr
a lot of my crafting things are kind of like visual art
yeah.
stuff, but I don't always see myself as a visual artist, I guess.
Yes. I put writing a play.
Mhm.
Mhm. For me, if I didn't have to do it perfectly, I'd write more. That's like my main one, y'all. If I didn't have to do it perfectly,
Mhm.
your girl would be like, write more. If I didn't have to do it perfectly, I'd make more YouTube videos. Like I'd make more videos, I'd edit. I just those are certain things that I hold that keep me in the loop. I'm like, wow, that's very writing and video, photography.
I
Those
put
are things.
photography in here too because I do like taking pictures, especially when I have my GoPro. Well, I still have my GoPro. I keep saying like it went away, like it walked away from me. It's still in my possession. I just don't use my GoPro camera anymore. But I love like taking like nature photos and of plants, of the water, and so that was really beautiful, especially when I was on Guam. And when I
Mhm.
traveled, like tropical places, I usually would take it. And I have a bunch of footage. Yeah, I just don't do anything with it. So yeah, I feel like, yeah, if I let go of having to do it perfectly, I would share more of the photography I already have. Not even go out and do more. It's just like I have a bunch that I think is beautiful. I just, yeah, just for
Mhm.
some reason haven't shared it. Ooh, I like Geneva's comment, but what's perfect, right? It's an illusion. And she mentions this
It's an
in here one
illusion.
of
It's a lie.
she says it's like one of the most expensive illusions. Let me see if I can
Mhm.
find that quote because
It
I was
is.
snapping. Oh yes, and the so in the risk section. Wait, do I have it as one of these quotes? Let me make sure. No, I don't. Okay, but on page 121, talks about we deny that in order to do something well, we must first be willing to do it badly.
Mhm.
Living within these bounds, we may feel stifled, smothered, despairing, bored, but yes, we do feel safe. And safety is a very expensive illusion. So that's what
Safety.
perfect is this illusion of safety of like, oh, if I do it right, then people won't ridicule me. People won't make fun of me. People won't be like, why is she doing that thing? Why is she on stage singing a song when. So yes, it's a lie that we tell ourselves. And yeah, and then Pauline shares my list is basically AJ's list. Um, and then Geneva shared some earlier. Perfectionism feels like being overly critical, and that can manifest into self shame. Yes.
Mhm.
Whereas showing up as your best feels like just being accountable and kind towards yourself.
Mm.
Yes, I love
That right
that.
there.
Yeah, showing up as your best. And that's a motto or mantra I've had for myself in the recent years is like, I'm just going to show up as best as I can. And right, that means you can be prepared. Yes, preparing helps you feel like your best, but being prepared doesn't mean you have to be perfect, right? And I
Mhm.
think that has been really helpful in my journey. And so, next quote I wanted to share is, as blocked artists, we unrealistically expect and demand success from ourselves and recognition of that success from others. Right? So not only are we demanding of ourselves, but then we're like, well, if I'm gonna do this, I want other people to say I'm good at this, or oh wow, that was such an amazing piece, or oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm so inspired. It's like, why can't we just share the thing because it feels good for
Mhm.
us?
Mhm. Definitely.
And then Sultry Mama is sharing, to me, my best sewing projects come from a lot of mistakes, right? So it is
That's important for
helpful.
me to hear because that's on my list too.
Yeah, yeah, because Soultry Mama definitely is a trial and error, or try it first and work from there type of seamstress. Yeah, I definitely remember witnessing that growing up. And then Kyle shares, quote from Adventure Time, yes, a trusted source. Sucking at something is the first step to being sort of good at something.
Mhm.
Yes, that's me in my pole journey right now. Okay, because my class on Monday, it was reminding me that I'm very much so beginner. And yeah, being it is the first step of being good at it, right? So I had to let go of looking a certain type of way since I'm just beginning. So yeah, it is a great reminder.
And that goes into this next quote, Tony. There's something enlivening about
Mhm.
expanding our self definition, and a risk does exactly that. Selecting a
Mhm.
challenge and meeting it creates a sense of self empowerment. So, girl, you empowering yourself, going to that pole and
Yes.
being a beginner.
Yes, that's what
Hmm.
pole does for me. That's what running does. So that's why I like to sign up for races when I run. So I do have a 5K coming up for International Women's Day in March, because that helps motivate me. Yeah, like when I say, "Oh, I'm going to do this thing," and I do it, that's what I call honoring myself. And this past year in doing things that honor myself really did help me feel enlivened. And so, yeah, my pole journey has been that, and definitely being more creative and just leaning into that as well.
Hmm. Definitely. And then now we go to the next section, jealousy. I was like, it's interesting how, like, what gets in the way of connection? First, it was listening, then it's perfectionism. And now she's like, jealousy. And I love this
Mhm.
definition. Jealousy is always a mask for fear, fear that we aren't able to get what we want, frustration that somebody else seems to be getting what is rightfully ours, even if we are too frightened to reach for it. I was like, yes.
Mhm.
We've read books that make different definitions of different emotions, but this one right here, I like how she's saying it's a mask for fear, y'all, and it's a fear that we aren't able to get what we want, and frustrated that someone else has what is supposed to be ours, even if we don't want to go for it. And that is a true statement. Like in anything that I'm jealous of, it's exactly that. It's exactly this definition. Y'all, I was like, I felt red. I was like,
It's like, yeah, it's exactly. It's like, well, why don't you just do the thing? And then the self, you're like, oh, well, I don't want to do, or whatever, fears or perfectionism, don't want to take that risk, right? Like we can think about all these other sections of this chapter. But yeah, it was interesting when the jealousy section came up because I was like, oh, I don't think I organically would have thought that would go with connection, right? But it makes sense. But I was like, oh, interesting. And another point that she makes is that jealousy is a stingy emotion. It doesn't allow for the abundance and multiplicity of the universe, right? So, again, like last week, we're talking about abundance. How do we cultivate more of that? And she's saying jealousy is a direct threat, essentially, to that abundance that we're wanting
yeah.
to cultivate. So, like with the blocked artists, with our shadow artists, a lot of that is information. That's why she has us do all these reflection
Hmm.
questions, these tasks to provide information that, like, we actually just want to do those things. It's not because these people
Right.
suck or they're not doing it right, or we could do it better. She's then do it. Then do it. Then we
Hmm.
can. We There's
Well,
multiple room for all of us to
yes.
thrive. You
And
can
I
do it too.
And I think she's talking also too, because when we read Atlas of the Heart, jealousy and envy, right, were kind of like related. It's like envy is like kind of what she's labeling as jealousy. And then in the other book was like jealousy is like talking about like you're thinking of like somebody else in a relationship, like it's in relationship to other people. So it's always interesting, y'all, when different books have different perspectives and lens of like this word that people like to say I don't identify with. But really we all have that jealousy, especially when we think about our creative endeavors. Like jealousy shows up to for me mostly in the creative space than it is about relationships. I'm like, you know what? All love. It's all love. But jealousy, I definitely feel when it comes to creative endeavors. So I really appreciated that she also offered a jealousy map, which we'll get to in a second.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of folks usually write off jealousy and like, "Oh, I'm not a jealous person," because again, the virtue trap that they believe that if they're jealous, if they invoke any type of jealousy, that they're a terrible person. And it's like, no, jealousy is an emotion, just like many others, like happiness, sadness, anger, frustration. Jealousy and envy are natural, right? And it's how we
Hmm.
act on it, how we let it metabolize in our body, in our
Hmm.
minds is maybe if it is a virtue or not. But again, if we're making mistakes, you can be jealous. That's okay. You just need to do the self reflection and be like, oh, this means I actually want to do the thing. And from her definition, I feel like the first part, fear that we aren't able to get what we want, is kind of the envy, because you just want a thing, and then the frustration that somebody else seems to be getting, that is the jealousy, because that brings in the interpersonal. So that was kind of my interpretation
Hmm.
of it. But the next quote that I wanted to share with the jealousy section is, jealousy strips us of our will to act when action holds the key to our freedom.
Hmm.
Right? So we blame it on jealousy of like, oh, if that person just didn't start their thing before me, if they didn't, buy that building, I could have my business here. And it's like, or you can act and do another thing to help you still pursue your creative freedom, right? So instead
Hmm.
of using jealousy as an excuse to why we can't do the thing or why God is not blessing us in our creative endeavors, which we talked about a different week, it's about, no, we still have the freedom to pursue these things. And that's kind of where our innovation and creativity comes in too, is that it doesn't always have to look like how we dreamt of it. Exactly.
Hmm.
Again, unlearning that perfectionism, that just because we dreamt of a thing looking a certain way, if in reality we have to shift, that's okay. That's a part of the creative process as
Hmm.
well.
Exactly. And I appreciate how she, she's giving us an action or like an exercise. She's not just leaving us with like, jealousy is okay. It's something that we must confront for our creative recovery. She's like, here is an exercise and give it a try, see how you feel. And it's the jealousy map, which is on page 124. And so she says your jealousy map will have three columns. In the first column, name of those whom you are jealous of. Write them down. Next, to each name, write why. Why are you jealous? Be as specific and accurate as you can. In the third column, list one action you can take to move toward creative risk and out of jealousy. Mhm.
Hmm.
And then she gives an example and shows like, this is an example. Who? My sister Libby. Why? She has a real art studio. Action antidote, fix spare room.
Hmm.
Right? So I appreciated that. And I definitely
Exactly.
worked through it.
Yeah, I appreciated this exercise. Those things that like, oh, I wouldn't typically think about, or I would write it off as something else. I probably would label it a different emotion than jealousy.
Hmm.
And so it was interesting because yeah, I have a whole page full of stuff. So that was helpful and expanded like my whole life, right? Like there's some that's about like personal lives, there's some about
Hmm.
creative endeavors, there's some about my work, like my 9 to 5. So it was interesting
Hmm.
exercise.
Yeah.
Definitely every week I'm always like, wow, these are really helpful.
Did y'all try the jealousy map? Let us know in the chat. Kyle shares, this chapter helped explain how people often end up surrounded by people they're actually kind of jealous of. It's the shadow artist idea. They may be blocked. Yes. So shadow artist is definitely connected to that feeling of jealousy, you know? And then Geneva shares, jealousy often is just desire, something we're trying to get, something we haven't given ourselves permission to have,
Mm.
or something we don't believe is possible for us. Hmm.
Mhm. Exactly. which
Sometimes
I
you can be
think also
jealous.
goes into
Yeah, sometimes you can be jealous and really like that is actually attainable. Like she's saying, it's just literally we're not
Mhm.
giving ourselves permission. And like if you share with somebody, like if you allow yourself to have it, you can very much have it. Sometimes it's just a barrier of yes or no in your head.
Yeah, so I feel like this week's chapter really goes with last week about abundance, right? If we're thinking abundantly of all the possibilities, and if we're talking thinking about the week before possibility, then that helps us unlearn this jealousy and this perfectionism because we know that there's, so much out there for all of us.
Hmm.
And then we have the archaeology exercise as well, which was about the phrases that follow are more of your sleuth work. Very often, we have buried parts of ourselves that can be uncovered by some digging. Not only will your answers tell you what you missed in the past, they will tell you what you can be doing now. To comfort and
Mm.
encourage your artist child, it's not too late, no matter what your ego tells you. So these are the phrases she had us complete. As a kid, I missed the chance to. As a kid, I lacked. As a kid, I could have used. As a kid, I dreamed of being. As a kid, I wanted a. In my house, we never had enough. As a kid, I needed more. I am sorry that I will never again see. For years, I have missed and wondered about. I beat myself up about the loss of. And then she says, it's important to acknowledge our positive inventory as well as our shortfalls. Take positive stock of what good you have to build on in the present. So I have a loyal friend in. One thing I like about my town is I think I have a nice. Writing my morning pages has shown me I can. I am taking a greater interest in. I believe I am getting better at. My artist has started to pay more attention to. My self-care is I feel more. Possibly my creativity is. So again, I think all of these questions really help again excavate and get to the root of
Mhm.
like what is going to make our artist child happy, fulfilled, joy. How can we be our best self? And that's through a lot of these practices and things that will come up in these exercises. And sometimes the questions that she has or the phrases, I'm always like, oh, that's interesting. But as I start writing, I'm like, oh yeah, it's uncovering a lot. So I did appreciate this exercise as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah, I really appreciate the second half too of the archaeology because the first half I was like, "Oh
Mhm.
no, oh no." But then she was like positive, and so that was nice too. I like the balance of the 2.
Mhm. And then for me, with the second half, with the writing my morning pages has shown me, and then I wrote, I can wake up earlier and prioritize me and my mental health before starting the day, right? Because there was different
Mhm.
times when I had a really consistent self-care routine in the morning. And then now it's helping me not only in the morning, but at night. I really didn't think the artist way would help with my sleep routine, but that's like a byproduct that I feel like I've been talking about for like a long time because it really has helped me be more intentional about putting myself to bed, being gentle with myself, like she talked about for the first task of like taking care of Tony. And so, yeah, I feel like a lot of these tasks help remind myself of like, these are the things I need to do to take care of myself. Like, even the different creative acts and our solo
Mhm.
dates and all of that is just like reminder of like, oh, this is how I'm caring for myself.
Yes. One thing I noticed for me through this artist way journey is that now Sundays are very sacred. So we talked about having like that sacred space, and it's been really sacred for me to like bake every week. Like I never thought that baking would be such like a fulfilling thing because at first I was baking, because I wanted to save money on baked goods. Then second, like it was in the artist way. But now I
Mhm.
thoroughly just it's really I'm like, wow, I've been baking once a week for a month now and all these things. So it was nice to take inventory of it's always nice to take inventory of the changes you see, even though it's like I haven't made this great artwork. Like, my creativity is not necessarily making a thing. Well, I mean, I'm baking, so it is a thing, but I'm but
No, no, she's
it's
like, girl, are you
no,
reading the book or not?
but it's like it's a thing that like how to explain it? It's show my creativity is blossoming. Like what I wrote down is like my creativity is blossoming in parts of my life that I didn't even like. It's like this process is shining light and opening up more creativity in aspects of my life that I would never truly spend and invest that time on. So it's interesting how like it's really like doing a number for me because I really thought like by this week 7 I would have sewed up like because that was my main thing. I was like, "Ooh, Artist Way is gonna help me sew. It's gonna help me sew," and I've gotten far to design like a an outfit that I continually be wearing tomorrow for a performance, but I haven't. My mom is still helping me with sewing it, but it's interesting because I'm not being hard on myself because there's so many other aspects of my creative like life opening up. Do y'all feel that too? Like, are y'all being surprised? What is the most surprising thing in this process thus far that has been revealed to you through this process? For me, it's been like Tony was sharing, like going to sleep, like taking more care of myself. And like, I didn't go into this thinking this is going to be a self care book. I thought it was like creative care. But she said last week, self-care is creative care. It's all connected. So it's just interesting how a lot of the books that we're reading always come back to like nurturing self. Um, I don't know, just basic.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's
like,
what the top of the book it says, a course in discovering and recovering your creative self, right? So it's talking about self. It's not a course in discovering what your next art exhibit is going to be
I'm just letting
about,
you know
right?
I was
It's like, yeah. So I think that's why I think is the beauty of this book is that people are going to be called to it for one thing, right? It's like we're called to all types of stuff. And what we're going to get out of it is so much more, right? Like a spiritual path to higher creativity. And she's sharing that, like, being creative is not just being in an art studio and producing creative deliverables, right? She's saying that like being creative is just being when you breathe, that is a creation, right? And so I think again from the agreements or the principles we have in the beginning help remind us too and ground us throughout our journey. And so, yeah, that is something that has pleasantly surprised me about the book, about like how deep it goes into our childhoods, our
mhm,
backgrounds, uncovering those things. And like you said, like you thought maybe you'd be sewing, but again, with each week, it gives us the freedom to choose. And right now, you're choosing other things that help you feel your creative self. And so, I think that's helpful of like not limiting ourselves to certain practices or things. I think this book really, for me, yeah, has opened up stuff. And yeah, for me, I think my sleep routine and sleep care has been something that has
yeah,
pleasantly surprised me. And for my creativity stuff, it's been nice to be affirmed that like stuff I liked as a child are things that I can still do today as an
mhm,
adult. So like scrapbooking, collaging, um, just going on walks and being, or now I have like Legos, things like that, that I feel like not all adults talk about doing as their creative practice, right? Like if you were to do an interview, like, oh, what's your creative practice? I'm like, before this book, it would be in my head, I think a lot of the things that people would say would be really limited. But now after halfway through, I'm like, oh, there's so many things that are a part of my creative practice.
mhm, yes, like living is a
Mhm.
part of our creative practice. And then Geneva shares, I've been recognizing how much more creative activities I needed just for me, not for
Mhm.
social media, not to
Yes.
share, but just because I enjoy it. That has led me to feel way more fulfilled. I feel that so
Mhm.
much, Geneva. Yes. Stuff for self. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, like these discoveries that we're having, it's so personal, it's so sacred, and not feeling like can we come to this space every Wednesday to share? Um, and I also love that we have this too, like yes, we're coming here and sharing our insights, but these morning pages, y'all, having a space to write it all down, that has been the most. unexpected habit that now feels like, what was I doing before this? How was I checking in with myself? And I also noticed like I talk to my sister a lot less, and not in a bad way, but I mean like I'm leaning less into calling her to get the Matote madness out. I'm not even bringing that in. So I'm like,
Thank you.
yay.
Once you started therapy, once you started journaling now, I'm like, my work is done now.
Yes,
I
y'all.
can finally take off these therapeutic hats off.
Yes, you could just be Sister Tony. Yes. How do you feel? How do y'all feel with your capacity? Let us know in the chat if you feel like your capacity is extending. And yeah, we'll begin to wrap up our conversation.
Yeah, I feel like what I've shared in previous weeks that I feel a lot more like private, protective, sacred, because going through this journey of creative recovery and tapping into spiritual path, yeah, I feel like it's helped me really intentionally make time for my spiritual practices because I've done them before because that's obviously what I do, but it's been nice to be more like unapologetic about it and really carving out that time and dedicating time just for those types of things that I enjoy doing, from the small to the big. All of that I feel like has been really helpful. Just like, yeah, allowing myself permission to just set time in my schedule for these different things
Mhm.
that, like in my planner, I always put morning pages in the morning and then I'll schedule my artist date and when I'm going to read the chapter. So it's nice that it's like literally in my schedule. It's like in my lifestyle. Like it's now become part of my lifestyle, which is nice.
Definitely. I feel that.
Mhm. And then Kyle shares, oh yeah, you pulled it up too. Definitely have more become more open to the creative process over the course of reading the book, becoming more expansive and lighter as well. Yes, I do feel like a sense of lightness, especially because yeah, the morning pages helps us get that out, right? Like she said, you just put it on the page and then through excavating through these exercises, I feel also take some of that shame that Geneva was sharing, take that shame away, take that pressure away, take the ideas of, these like perfectionism and stuff. So yeah, even though some of the questions at first I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I never thought that would be related to this week. Once I
Mhm.
do the exercise, I'm like, yeah, I feel lighter of like, oh, okay, even just putting it on the page of like what I'm jealous about or what, I wish I had as a kid, like even just writing that down helps open that up. So yeah, it's definitely
Mhm.
been like very fulfilling to do this again at week 7 and we have still some more weeks left so I'm curious to what else will come up.
Geneva shares, I feel way less affected by my opinions. I validate my art and
Mhm.
so does spirit. So I so if I have myself in spirit, then all will manifest. Yes. The
Yeah.
voices. Yes. I'm starting to become like the sensor voice and then the the higher, they call it something, the higher harmonic voice of like try this, do this. um I just feel like the signal is getting clearer.
Mhm.
hmm hmm Thank you all for sharing. We're gonna head into what, week 8?
8, which is recovering a sense of strength. So I'm also curious what's going to come out of next week. But again, you'll find us same time, same place on our book club lives to discuss all the chapters with you. Join our book clubs page so you can find out, all the updates, get all the reminders. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel to get the updates when we go live. And yeah, if you have anything for us, you can message us on Instagram or email us. We have really exciting things coming up this.
We have really exciting things coming up in March. So join our newsletter if you're not already to be in the know of everything we have going on.
Yes, thank you all and have a great week too.
Bye.
Bye.